I'd planned it for a different video, my dragon slaying videos. I know, I'm behind schedule, but this will get put out, at least in the meantime, since this at least can hone in on all of them. So, I've gotten to at least another, like 2 or 3 arguments recently, just of people not knowing how certain things work in Fairy Tail. And it's different, obviously, like if it's a disagreed topic, but if it's something that people try and pretend, like when people try and explain or say like some form of, any form of topic that clearly they don't know what they're talking about, but they pretend they do, always bothers me. It's just one of those things. So I figured I'd just make a video explaining to people very easily how Dragon Force works, how Dragon Force affects stats, and exactly how to really kind of process, like, a very easy comparative of understanding how it works in Dragon Slaying Magic. So, obviously within Fairy Tail you have general wizards. Wizards have magic. The magic of, their amount, magic supply, is going to be what determines how powerful they are. But it's not just a one-for-one, because you also have to take into account what type of magic they have. You could say have a summoner and a mid-range fighter be the exact same in how much magic power they have, but because of how their magics work differently, it's going to progress differently. So you could say, for instance, somebody who's a summoner is going to have powerful summons and spells like Lucy, but in terms of what she would have durability-wise is not going to be even close. Lucy's obviously a small exception because she doesn't fight like a regular summoner, gets beat up a lot, but you understand what I mean. It's like, you have a certain amount of points, you have to put them in different categories, but there are, depending on what you pick, like what magic you learn, those are going to allocate differently. Like, obviously, like I said, if you're a summoner, you're somebody who doesn't regularly take damage, your magic increases are going to be more towards things like, your reaction speed or things you can summon, but not so much as your durability, because it's not something that your magic focuses on or excels in. But with Dragon Slaying Magic, it's more about the progress of the magic that's very important. So the difference between a lot of other magics and Dragon Slaying Magic, and you look at Slayer Magic in general, but Dragon Slaying Magic primarily, is that it isn't just I power myself up with magic, just now I'm a physical fighter. It alters your body composition, and alters your genetic structure to be more like that of a dragon. Why is that important? Because the amount of dragonification that a Dragon Slayer is very relevant to how strong they are. So you could say, the step in percentages is going to have an effect. And what I mean by that is, obviously when you start using Dragon Slaying Magic, your body is permanently altered. And as you get stronger and use it more frequently, it will increase the progression of becoming a dragon. So let's say you start out day 1, you're at 1%. You had it for a couple of years, bam, you're at 10%. And as you go, every single time you gain a further progression of becoming dragon-like, you will become stronger by default. So like, say you went out training, you did all this stuff to improve your striking strength, your durability, your magic quantity supply and whatnot, you would get stronger from that, but just using your magic in general and progressing Dragon Slaying Magic, the dragonification process would increase and you would become stronger by default from that as well. That reason of that is because Dragon Slaying Magic is not the magic itself, but like the techniques and what a Dragon Slayer can do are a byproduct of the dragonification process and how they utilize Dragon Slaying Magic. So, say, a good example of that is, real quick, is Natsu, at the start of the series, his magic couldn't burn fire. His fire couldn't burn magic. And when we got to his fight with Zero, it's the first time we really see him burn magic. Doesn't have that after the fight. Once we get up to Sting and Rogue, Natsu's gotten to the point where he can use that ability, that extra trait of Dragon Slaying Magic, Fire's branch at least, all the time. So it's obviously something that you will get general bonuses and additions to what you can do just as the progression line goes. But because of that, like I said, it is permanent. It is something that will keep going unless an outside source prevents it, again, from progressing, like Igneel and all the other dragons did with the Dragon Slayers that they were, hiding inside of. You can kind of think of it like Pokemon, because once a Pokemon evolves, they're evolved. They don't go back. Once you get to the next spot in the dragonification process, you go from 10 to 11%. There's no going back to 10. The only thing that we've seen is that because of Irene, pretty much just killed killed, quote unquote, the magic that Nibara was using in general. It stopped him. So potentially, at least for 5th gen, because it seems to be a rapid process, maybe if you halt it and completely just shut it off before it finishes, there's a way for it. I would wonder about that for other Dragon Slayers, but it's kind of hard to say because the dragonification process for the other branches that we've seen in other generations is more of a gradual process, and then it just kind of happens. So I don't imagine that you could have some character on standby at all times ready to try and fix you, especially because there's not a lot of people capable of even the level that we saw with Nibara, because, Irene isn't just some random wizard. But, again, think of it like Pokemon. The dragonification process is permanent, but as it goes, every single time that you get another step, you'll get much stronger, and once you make certain threshold breaks, you will get bonuses, new abilities, and just generally much, much stronger. Again, Natsu getting something like being able to burn magic. With Dragon Force, though, it's different, because, again, remember when I said it's like Dragon Slayers are like Pokemon? Think of it like Dragon Force changes them from Pokemon to Digimon, where, say you're, again, 10% into the dragonification process. Use Dragon Force, now you're at 20. But instead of being now at 20, and you're at 20 forever, once it wears out, you go back. So it is a temporary jump in line. Again, think of Digimon. They digivolve, they're much more powerful, but when they either are defeated or run out of power, they revert back. It's just essentially a jump into the future. And I think a large reason that we never saw someone like Irene or Acnologia use Dragon Force is they don't really need to. Dragon Force is like, in that regard, again, a way to tap into how powerful you will be once you get to this stage. And again, it's an increase on their base. So as their base gets stronger, their Dragon Force gets to a higher level. Like, if you could have the same amount of Dragon Force, like the same level on a character, but it might be two completely different levels if it's obviously a gap between, for instance, Natsu using it on Jalal versus Natsu using it on Zero or Margear. A little different Margear, but obviously with Zero, another artificially boosted one. But obviously, if you look at Natsu, the dragon scales, he's got more of them on his face, his arms, so it's, a further progression of the dragonification process. So anytime that you have something like that, it's a visual indicator of like, oh, this is a higher level. This is something that is beyond what we saw before, and with easy indicators, being able to see things like more scales, Natsu getting his fire horns. Oh, I hiccuped right there. Or, for instance, him getting colored scales. Just something just to kind of add. Like, obviously, because when we first saw Natsu's Dragon Force, there were the flesh color scales, but then later, obviously, with Sting and Rogue, we started to see him with color, and then with Wendy and Natsu, they were getting this same as well. But yeah, it's something that I feel like people just don't really get, and they think that it's a general power up, and that's it. Because every single time we've ever seen a character use Dragon Force, it's an across-the-board multiplier. It's a huge increase to everything. Because, again, the dragonification amount affects all of your abilities, all your stats. Because the speed of a Dragon Slayer, their striking strength, the potency of their magic, the potency of their abilities, everything is off of their magic amount and the level of dragonification that they've gone through. So, say, again, that you are somebody who is, in a fight, you use Dragon Force. It's because it isn't like, oh, because of this, it triples my magic. It isn't that. It's, I've increased the amount of dragon in my body. So, all the benefits of, dragon aspects go with it. you gain a core fundamental increase. It's like if you have like a computer or a car, you upgrade all its like more internal specific things. Not like, oh, I'm gonna add some new tires, but you get everything that you can for its more kind of core and like functional pieces that increase performance everywhere. And then again, that's how Dragon Force works. It's not the same thing as like, oh yeah, I put this on, I gain double speed, or now I have this extra thing. It's a complete increase to everything because it increases the core, again, root core, foundation, whatever you want to call it, of the magic. It is something that just in general will increase everything they have. Like a good example, like another series example, is Bankai, because it's not the exact same thing, because Bankai, but is ish in a way. Bankai is a increase to everything that a Zanpakuto specializes in. If you're good at, like, you know, if you're a speed character, unless you're Soy Phone, if you're a speed character, and it's like, oh, well, putting, you know, Ichigo's a good example-ish, I guess, because she kind of doesn't seem to give the speed increase, but you know what I mean. Oh, well, this thing is really good at, you know, fast attacks. Use Bankai. It's like, oh, well, that speed of attack has now increased, 5 to 10 times? It increases not just attack power or your Ryatsu, it's whatever this specializes in is increased. It takes the thing itself, and instead of just being like, oh, I add one thing, it says, oh, everything right here that this has got going for it, let's improve that. And that's what it is for Dragon Slayers. But the thing with Dragon Slayer magic is that they are close combat melee fighters. And the reason that they're able to do that isn't because, like, oh, I've boosted myself with magic. They have a dragon-like body. So they gain, again, all of these stats and capabilities as they progress as a dragon. It has to do way more with their dragon bodies, more so than amount of magic. Because you could have, for instance, Natsu. You have your base, you have a certain amount of power and magic that you can use. Dragon Force, you could be doing nothing to otherwise increase your power. Like, not training or doing anything. You just pop that on, massive increase to everything. It's something that just has always done that, literally. And I find it funny when people bring, like, well, how do you know it increases speed? Like, well, I've seen, you know, pretty much that happen every single time somebody uses Dragon Force ever. It's something that increases everything they can do, because their speed, their durability, their physical strength isn't as much their magic amount. It has to do with the dragonification amount, because that is what really powers them. That is what really pushes all of their capabilities to where they're at. That is why you could have a character have the exact same amount of magic, no increase, no outside influence, nothing that gives them a boost of any kind. But once you use Dragon Force, it is a foundational increase. It changes what their thresholds are capable of. Like, if you think about it as another series, I'll use Black Clover really quick for an example. Think about it like if you were in Black Clover, if there was something like, oh, if I use this ability, I can have a spell that I haven't learned yet, but I'll only be able to use it for like a short period of time, or, you know, something like that. Anything that it's like it is a way to see your capabilities in a couple chunks. But it's also, again, why once you get the full dragon form, it's like, why would you want a partial dragon form when you have the full thing? Because on top of that, you get, pretty much negation of and immunity to magic, absurd physical strength. Again, another one's a really good example. Irene, just really quick, something I want to throw in there to give another good example. Irene, everything she was capable of in her human form, because again, Irene wasn't a human at that point. She was a dragon in human form. Once she went into her dragon form, everything that she was capable of, including her magic, increased. Melee, physical, durability, everything increased. So it's not just a magic boost. Magic is additional. Dragons can use magic. They don't need to use magic or have to. It's something they can do, but they have their own dragon abilities and their own capabilities that they have on a species level. Like, they're dragon racials and whatnot. But because of that, I feel like people don't really look too much into kind of the explanation of it, because I feel like if you don't know how dragon slaying magic works, you're just gonna think, oh yeah, it's just a power buff, it's just a boost, it's just like a an increase to their magic, and they get a little froggier for a bit. It's like, no, it completely alters what they can do. It completely alters their output, their durability. And you can look at a lot of these fights. You look at Meteor Jalal. Like, Jalal just Tower of Heaven Jalal using Meteor. Nothing crazy. He's literally just flying with speed. Blitzing the hell out of Natsu. Ridiculously faster than him. Natsu gets Dragon Force, blitzes him. Absolutely from afar, jumps and just hits right into him. Natsu is Zero. Natsu was barely able to keep up with Zero's attacks. He took his full power to be able to stop one of his Dark Capricios. Natsu Dragon Force, no problem. That shit gets right up to his face, swats it away. Now he's fine keeping up with them. Same thing with something like Wendy or Easel. It's been always like that. And I don't know why people don't pay enough attention to understand that. Like, I don't think you need the full understanding of Dragon Slaying Magic and Dragon Force to know how it works. It's just like, you can see the obvious jumps in power per Dragon Force, and you can see the comparison of stages of it. Again, Natsu, when he first got it, a little bit of scales on his face, bam. He's got and a little bit on his arms too, and then it's like, oh, with Zero, way more potent. Clearly, he's fighting a stronger opponent than when he fought Jalal. Up with Mardgeir, way more powerful. Mardgeir was fine, kind of working around Gray and Natsu while worried about Gray's attacks. Dragon Force Natsu blitzes him, smashes him, goes and uses a Phoenix Sword right up into him, dramatically hurts him and pisses him off, more so than we saw anybody else do. Again, it's something that I really wanted to talk about, because for me, it's easy. It's easy for me to talk about. It's not easy for me to type 30 times a week. Obviously, I'm exaggerating the amount, but I've had to explain it to a lot of people. And then it's like, when I talk to people and be like, do you know how this works? And then again, they think it's just, oh yeah, they get a little bump. No, it's something that affects everything about them at a foundational level. Everything. If you think about it, another one is just like a video game that has like a skill tree, or anything where it's like you get attacks at certain levels. But it'd be like, oh, use this. I get to use that ability that I otherwise wouldn't get for X amount of time. Like, say you're level 5, you don't get this attack to level 20, but you get to use it for this fight because you were able to achieve this form in one way, shape, or form. So that's just one thing I wanted to talk about and to kind of get that out there today. It's been a troublesome conversation because it's just like, you explain it to people. Sometimes they end up getting it, sometimes they don't. But there's always more of them that just know somewhat of it, but don't know how it works. So I figured I would just kind of talk about it right here. Again, the best explanation I have for it is like going from, I'm a Pokemon permanently, or like regularly, but I have a power for a little bit that I become a Digimon. You get that short boost of power going up a form, and then it's like you were in this freaking Chad super powered mode until you run out, and then you go back to how you were, and you get a taste of that, like what you could be capable of. You keep pushing it. But as I said, it's just a topic to kind of go over today. Tell me in the comments what like for the people that otherwise didn't know, but maybe we're figuring out here. Like, do you understand now? I don't mean it in a mean way. I mean it in a, like, I want people to know kind of way, because I'm a big not fan of when people be like, when people, again, are trying to portray something as if they know the topic, and then it's just like, if you know what it is, and you know how wrong they are, it'd be like, if I'm not a sports guy, but I just started randomly talking about, like, this is the sports team this year, these guys, and then they're like, some guy who actually knows is like, they haven't even been in the top 16 in 10 years, and it's like, listen, I like their uniforms, okay? They got it. Something just ridiculous like that, where it's just like, why are you talking about this when you clearly have no idea what we're talking about? What do you gain from this? It's just like, you don't have to there's not a criteria for it's like, if you don't know what this form is, I'm going to come after you. It's just like, if you don't know what it is, I'll tell you. But I'd rather get this video out. It's a little longer than I planned, but I just wanted to like have an easy reference, at least not just for myself, but for some people, just to have a way to kind of like, if you don't want to go over it, it's like, hey, I'm gonna link this, put it on your background, and just kind of listen to it for a little bit. Give him timestamps. Like, this is when he kind of explains this part. This is when this guy explains this thing. But this is pretty much how Dragon Slaying magic works. Again, TLDR. Normally, you're a Pokemon. You use a power, you become a Digimon. You will Digivolve levels. You get to be your Chad form for a little bit, somewhere between you, like where you're at now, and your peak. And then when you run out, you're back to normal, you're powered down, and you're back to chilling at your weaker stage. But you know where your strength could eventually reach up to. Because again, when we saw Natsu against Jalal, that was early series Natsu with Dragon Force. Current Natsu with Dragon Force is up here throwing hands with Alderon. So it's just like, big boy jump. Big boy jump between those. But anyway, other than that, comment below. Tell me your guys' thoughts are about this. Like I said, if you didn't know how Dragon Force works, do you know now? For the people that already know, how useful will this video be for, like, if you want it, like, do you see yourself if you get in a situation where it's like somebody pretends that they don't, like, they know something about Fairy Tail, but it's clear that they don't, and they're just saying stuff? Like, if you had some, like if somebody would say, like, oh yeah, Dragon Force, it only doubles their power, and it only lasts for, 2 attacks or something, and just, what are you talking about? And then Dragon Slayers lose their power after they get it. It's like the final Getsuga Tensho, and it's like, what page was that on? It's just like, they just make it up. But yeah, otherwise, comment below. Tell me your thoughts are about this, and how you're, did you enjoy the video? Was it somewhat insightful? I know I'm not like a pinpoint Neil deGrasse Tyson, Morgan Freeman narrator where it's like, I don't miss a beat, but I try to at least talk to where it sounds organic, and to where it sounds like I'm actually, telling you, and not just a pre-recording. Even, well, scripted pre-recording, because I don't really script stuff. I don't like to write stuff down to kind of like follow a set. Maybe bullet points, but other than that, I just like to talk naturally. But anyway, like I said, comment below, thumbs up the video, friend, like, and subscribe, and check out my other videos. But in that, appreciate everybody's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.